Admiral Vexcar stood tall on the bridge of his massive warship called the Eternal Dominion. This ship was the biggest and strongest in all the known galaxy. For 300 years, no enemy had ever defeated it in battle. The ship could destroy moons with its powerful weapons and had shields that could stop any attack. The alien admiral looked like a giant lizard walking on two legs. His skin was dark green with sharp teeth and yellow eyes that glowed in the dim light of the bridge. He wore a black uniform covered with medals that showed all his victories in war. Behind him, other alien crew members worked at their stations, preparing for what they thought would be an easy fight. The Galactic Council had called Vexcar to deal with a new problem. Reports were coming in about a strange new species that called themselves humans. These humans had been attacking ships near the edge of known space. Several patrol fleets had been destroyed, but Vexcar did not believe the reports. He thought the survivors were just scared and making up stories. "Admiral, we have detected a ship coming toward us," said his tactical officer named Zenthra. She was smaller than the admiral, but had the same lizard-like appearance. "The ship is very small, sir. It is only 1/10 the size of our ship." Vexcar made a clicking sound with his mouth that meant he was amused. "Just one small ship? Maybe they want to give up without a fight." The human ship appeared out of hyperspace travel near their position. It moved smoothly through space with what looked like confidence. The ship had sharp angles and clean lines that looked simple compared to the curved and organic design of the alien dreadnought. The human ship was called the USS Liberty. On the bridge of the Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His uniform was dark blue with silver stripes on the sleeves. He studied the huge alien ship on his main screen without showing any fear or worry. "Sir, they are trying to talk to us," said Communications Officer Lisa Park. She was a young woman with black hair tied back in a neat style. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel as she worked. "Put them on the screen," Morrison said in a steady voice that showed he was not afraid. The face of Admiral Vexcar appeared on the Liberty's main display. His yellow eyes stared at the humans with clear hatred and contempt. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening like the growl of a dangerous animal. "I am Admiral Vexcar of the Draknari Empire. I command the ship called Eternal Dominion. You will surrender right now, or we will show you why we are called the galaxy's strongest. Your small ship cannot fight against our power." Morrison leaned forward a little in his chair, but his expression stayed calm. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy. We came here to talk about humanity joining your Galactic Council. We want to discuss peace and cooperation between our peoples." "Join our council?" Vexcar's laugh was a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. "Your species will work as slaves for us, or we will destroy you completely. Those are your only choices. Decide now before I lose patience." Morrison's face did not change, but his voice became harder. "I choose a third option that you did not mention. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks, turn on all our weapons. It is time to show these aliens what humans do when peaceful talk fails." Ryan Brooks was the ship's weapons officer. He was a young man with red hair and green eyes. His hands moved over his controls with practiced skill as he prepared the Liberties. Weapons for battle. "All weapon systems are ready, Captain. Just give the order." The alien admiral ended the communication with an angry snarl. On his bridge, he turned to his weapons officers and pointed at the human ship on their screen. "Prepare all weapons for attack. We will destroy them quickly and completely. Let this be a lesson to any other species that thinks they can challenge the Draknari Empire." Captain Morrison stood up from his chair and looked around at his crew. Each person was calm and ready for what was coming. They had trained for this moment, and they trusted their captain and their ship. "All hands. This is the captain. We are about to engage in combat with a hostile alien vessel. Remember your training and do your duty. Show them what Earth's finest can accomplish. The two ships faced each other in the darkness of space. On one side was the massive Eternal Dominion with its thousands of crew members and weapons that could destroy entire planets. On the other side was the small USS Liberty with only 200 crew members, but technology that the aliens had never seen before. Neither captain knew that this battle would change the entire galaxy forever. In just a few minutes, everything that the aliens believed about war and power would be proven wrong. The age of human dominance in space was about to begin with this single fight between two very different ships. The battle began the moment Admiral Vexcar cut off communication with the human ship. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alien crew members rushed to their battle stations. Warning lights flashed red and alarms made loud noises throughout the massive warship. The Admiral was sure this fight would be over in just a few seconds. "Charge the quantum-fold cannons," Vexcar commanded his weapons officer. These were the most powerful weapons on his ship. They could turn entire space stations into dust with just one shot. The weapons took several seconds to charge up their full power. The weapons officer was an alien with 4 arms and purple skin. His name was Corksmall, and he had been firing these weapons for 50 years. "Quantum fold cannons are charged and ready, Admiral. Target locked onto the human vessel." "Fire all cannons now," the Admiral ordered. Massive beams of pure energy shot out from the Eternal Dominion. The beams were so bright they lit up the darkness of space like small suns. These weapons had never failed to destroy their target completely. The alien crew watched their screens and waited to see the human ship disappear in a flash of light. But something impossible happened. The deadly energy beams reached the USS Liberty and then simply bent around it like water flowing around a rock. The beams curved away from the human ship and shot off harmlessly into empty space. Not a single beam touched the Liberty's hull. "What happened?" Vexcar shouted at his tactical officer, Zenthra. "Why did our weapons miss the target?" Zenthra stared at her instruments with confusion and fear. "Sir, the weapons did not miss. Something deflected the quantum energy. I have never seen anything like this before. According to our science, nothing can bend quantum fold energy." On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Morrison watched the alien attack with calm interest. His ship's defensive systems had worked perfectly. The gravity field generators around his ship had bent space itself, making the enemy weapons curve away harmlessly. "Interesting weapons," Morrison said to his science officer, Dr. Michelle Ford. She was a woman with blonde hair and smart brown eyes who understood the science behind their technology. "How much power did they use in that attack?" "Enough to destroy a small moon, Captain," Dr. Ford replied as she checked her readings. "Their quantum fold cannons are very advanced, but they still use old ideas about how energy works in space." Morrison nodded and turned to his helmsman. "Helm, take us closer to their ship. Weapons! Prepare the gravity lance for firing. Let's show them something they have never seen before." The gravity lance was humanity's most advanced weapon. Instead of using energy beams or missiles, it created small black holes that could tear apart anything at the atomic level. The weapon worked by bending gravity itself into a focused beam that could cut through any known material. Lieutenant Commander Brooks worked at his weapons station with steady hands. "Gravity lance is charged and ready, Captain. I have a clear shot at their main hull." "Fire when ready," Morrison ordered. The USS Liberty fired its gravity lance at the massive alien dreadnought. To the aliens, it looked like nothing had happened. They could not see the gravity beam because it was invisible to their sensors. But seconds later, they felt the effects as their ship began to shake and twist. "Hull breach on multiple decks," reported a panicked alien officer. "The damage is spreading through our biometal hull. Something is tearing apart our ship at the molecular level." Admiral Vexcar could not believe what he was seeing on his damage reports. His ship's living metal hull was supposed to heal itself and adapt to any attack. But this weapon was different. It was not attacking the hull with energy or force. It was changing the basic structure of space around the ship. "All weapons! Fire everything we have at that human ship!" Vex-Kar screamed. "Use every cannon, every missile, every weapon on this ship!" The Eternal Dominion unleashed its full firepower. Hundreds of energy beams, plasma bolts, and antimatter missiles flew toward the USS Liberty. It was enough destructive power to wipe out an entire fleet of normal warships. The space between the two ships filled with deadly weapons flying through the darkness. But the Liberty was not a normal warship. Chief Engineer Amy Clark sat at her station in the engine room, controlling the ship's gravity drives. She was a small woman with dark skin and quick fingers that danced over her controls. "Captain, I'm increasing power to the gravity field generators. We can handle a lot more than what they're throwing at us." The human ship moved through the storm of alien weapons like it was dancing. The gravity fields around the Liberty bent, space and time, making the ship move in ways that seemed impossible. Weapons that should have hit missed by inches. Missiles that should have exploded harmlessly flew past without detonating. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge and watched his ship avoid hundreds of deadly attacks. His crew worked with calm efficiency, each person doing their job perfectly. This was what they had trained for during long years of preparation for meeting hostile aliens. "Time elapsed since combat began," Morrison asked his tactical officer, Derek Stone. 60 seconds, Captain," Stone replied. He was a young man with black hair who had been watching the battle unfold on his screens. "Their main weapons are still firing, but they cannot hit us. Our gravity manipulation is too advanced for their targeting systems." Morrison smiled slightly. The first minute of combat had proven that human technology was far superior to anything the aliens possessed. Their massive ship with its thousands of weapons could not even touch the smaller human vessel. But this was just the beginning of what the Liberty could do in battle. Admiral Vex-Kar watched in growing panic as his most powerful weapons continued to miss the small human ship. The USS Liberty moved through space like it was alive, dodging every attack with impossible grace. The massive Eternal Dominion was being torn apart by the gravity lance while unable to land a single hit on its enemy. "Launch all fighter squadrons," the Admiral commanded. "If our main guns cannot hit them, we will overwhelm them with numbers." The launch bays of the Eternal Dominion opened, and thousands of small fighter craft poured out like angry insects. Each fighter was the size of a human transport ship and carried weapons that could destroy buildings. The alien pilots were trained, warriors who had never lost a battle in space. Squadron leader Vixtar led the first wave of fighters toward the Liberty. He had been flying combat missions for 30 years and had shot down over 200 enemy ships. Through his cockpit window, he could see the strange human vessel that was somehow defeating the mighty Eternal Dominion. "All fighters, attack." "Formation 7, Vixtar ordered over the radio. "Concentrate fire on their engine section. We will disable their ship and capture the survivors for questioning." On the Liberty's bridge, Tactical Officer Derek Stone watched the enemy fighters approaching on his screen. "Captain, they have launched approximately 3,000 fighter craft. Each one is heavily armed and shielded." Captain Morrison remained calm as he studied the tactical display. The cloud of enemy fighters looked dangerous, but he knew his ship had ways to deal with this threat. "Lieutenant Commander Brooks, deploy swarm drones. Dr. Ford, monitor the quantum field generators." Ryan Brooks activated one of humanity's most advanced defensive systems. "Deploying swarm drones now, Captain. Full dispersal pattern." The USS Liberty released what looked like a small cloud of silver dust into space. To the alien fighters, it appeared harmless and unimportant, but each tiny speck in that cloud was actually a microscopic robot controlled by the ship's quantum computer system. The cloud began to expand rapidly as millions of tiny drones spread out through space. Squadron leader Vixtar laughed when he saw the human response. "They release dust to fight our fighters. These humans must be desperate if that is their best defense." But his laughter stopped when the first wave of fighters hit the drone cloud. The microscopic robots immediately began attacking the alien ships at the atomic level. They took apart the fighters' hull plating molecule by molecule, turning advanced war machines into harmless scrap metal in seconds. "What is happening?" Vixtar screamed into his radio as he watched fighter after fighter simply fall apart around him. "My instruments show nothing but the ships are being destroyed." On his screen, he could see other fighters trying to turn away from the expanding cloud. But the tiny drones were faster than the alien ships. They swarmed over each fighter like invisible death, dismantling weapons, engines, and life support systems with terrifying efficiency. Dr. Ford monitored the drone attack from her science station. "Captain, the swarm drones are performing perfectly. They are identifying and neutralizing all hostile targets within their operational range. Enemy fighter losses are approaching 90%. Captain Morrison nodded as he watched the battle unfold. "Any fighters attempting to retreat?" "Negative, sir," replied Stone. "The drones are programmed to pursue any hostile craft that enters their activation zone. A few fighters are trying to escape, but they will not succeed." Within 2 minutes, 3,000 alien fighters had been reduced to floating debris. Squadron leader Vixtar found himself alone in space, his fighters' weapons and engines completely disabled by the microscopic attackers. His radio was dead, and his life support was failing. Admiral Vexcar stared at his tactical display in complete shock. His entire fighter wing had been eliminated by what appeared to be empty space. His science officers could not detect the human drones even though they had just witnessed their devastating effectiveness. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. "What kind of technology can destroy fighters without being seen?" His tactical officer Zenthra was studying her instruments with growing fear. "Admiral, I am reading massive structural damage throughout our ship. The human gravity weapon is causing cascade failures in our biometal hull. We are losing hull integrity on all decks." The gravity lance continued its relentless attack on the Eternal Dominion. The weapon created tiny distortions in space-time that spread through the ship's living metal structure like a disease. The biometal tried to heal itself, but could not adapt to having reality itself twisted around it. Captain Morrison checked the time display on his command chair. "Time elapsed?" 120 seconds, Captain," Stone reported. "Dr. Ford, what is the status of their main reactor?" Morrison asked. The science officer checked her readings carefully. "Their power core is becoming unstable, sir. The gravity distortions are affecting their containment fields. I estimate they have less than 2 minutes before complete reactor failure." Morrison considered his options. He could finish destroying the alien ship now, or he could try to save some of the crew for questioning. His mission was to demonstrate human power, but also to gather intelligence about the galactic civilizations. "Prepare a localized stasis field," he ordered. "Target their command section. When their ship breaks apart, I want survivors we can talk to." Amy Clark's voice came from the engine room. "Stasis field generators are ready, Captain. I can preserve their bridge section when the main hull fails." The USS Liberty had proven that human technology was far superior to anything the galaxy's strongest ship could deploy. Their gravity manipulation, quantum computers, and microscopic robotics had defeated every weapon the aliens possessed. But the real test was still coming, as other alien fleets were already moving toward their position. "Admiral." Vexcar slumped in his command chair as damage reports continued to flood in. His mighty dreadnought was dying around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. In just 2 minutes, everything he believed about space warfare had been proven completely wrong. The small human ship had not just defeated the Eternal Dominion. It had demonstrated that size and firepower meant nothing against superior technology and tactics. The galaxy's balance of power was about to change forever. Admiral Vexcar realized that his ship was dying and there was nothing he could do to save it. The gravity weapon from the human ship had spread through the Eternal Dominion like poison, destroying the biometal structure from the inside. His crew worked desperately at their stations, but the damage was too severe to repair. "Admiral, all weapon systems are offline," reported his weapons officer, Corksmall. "The gravity distortions have damaged our power conduits beyond repair. We cannot—" "Return fire! Engineering reports total reactor containment failure in 60 seconds, added another officer. "The quantum core is going critical. We need to evacuate immediately." But Vexcar was not ready to give up. He had one last weapon that could still destroy the human ship. Deep in the heart of his dreadnought was a planet-killer device that could crack worlds in half. If he was going to die, he would take these arrogant humans with him. "Activate the Doomsday weapon," he ordered. "Full power to the quantum disruptor. We will show them that the Draknari Empire does not surrender." The Doomsday weapon began charging its massive power systems. This device had been used only 3 times in galactic history, each time to destroy an entire planet that had refused to surrender to the Draknari Empire. It drew power directly from the ship's quantum core and could release enough energy to shatter a moon. On the USS Liberty, Dr. Ford detected the energy buildup immediately. "Captain, they are charging some kind of massive weapon. Power readings are off the scale. This could be a planet-killer device." Captain Morrison studied the energy readings on his display. "How long until it fires?" 30 seconds, sir," Ford replied. "But there's something strange about the energy pattern. The gravity distortions from our lance are affecting their weapon's quantum matrix." Morrison smiled grimly. "Are you saying their own doomsday weapon might backfire?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, Captain. The gravity fields around their ship are causing feedback loops in their weapon system. When they try to fire, the energy will have nowhere to go except back into their own ship." Lieutenant Commander Brooks watched his tactical display as the alien weapon continued charging. "Captain, should we move away from their position? If that thing explodes, it could damage us too." "Negative," Morrison replied. "Our shields can handle the explosion. I want to see what happens when they try to use their ultimate weapon against us." The final seconds ticked away as the Doomsday weapon reached full charge. Admiral Vexcar stood on his bridge and glared at the human ship on his main screen. Even in defeat, he would have his revenge against these impossible enemies. "Fire the quantum disruptor," he commanded. The weapon fired, releasing enough energy to destroy a small planet. But instead of shooting toward the Liberty, the quantum energies were twisted by the gravity distortions around the Eternal Dominion. The massive burst of power curved back on itself and slammed directly into the alien dreadnought's own hull. The effect was catastrophic. The ship's biometal structure, already weakened by the gravity lance, could not withstand the impact of its own ultimate weapon. Massive explosions tore through every deck as the quantum energies ripped the vessel apart from the inside. "Hull breach on all decks!" screamed Zenthra as her control panel exploded in sparks. "Complete structural failure throughout the ship. We're breaking apart." Admiral Vexcar watched his mighty dreadnought tear itself to pieces. The irony was not lost on him that his own greatest weapon had delivered the final blow to his ship. As explosions rocked the bridge around him, he realized that the humans had not just defeated him with superior technology. They had turned his own power against him. "Impossible," he whispered as debris fell from the ceiling. "How did they know our weapon would backfire?" Captain Morrison stood calmly on his bridge as the alien ship began its final death throes. "Dr. Ford, activate the stasis field around their command section. I want Admiral Vexcar alive for questioning." The Liberty's stasis field generators created a protective bubble around the Eternal Dominion's bridge just as the main hull exploded. The rest of the massive dreadnought was torn apart by its own doomsday weapon, creating a brilliant flash of light that could be seen from several star systems away. When the explosion faded, only a small section of the alien bridge remained floating in space, preserved inside the human stasis field. The greatest warship in galactic history had been reduced to a handful of debris and one tiny survival pod. Time elapsed since combat began, Morrison asked. Exactly 240 seconds, Captain, reported Derek Stone. 4 minutes from first shot to final destruction. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The demonstration had been perfect. In just 4 minutes, a single human warship had completely destroyed the galaxy's most feared dreadnought, using technology that the aliens could not even understand. The message would be clear to anyone who had been watching this battle. Communications. Send a general broadcast on all frequencies, Morrison ordered. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy to all alien vessels and monitoring stations. The ship known as Eternal Dominion has been defeated and its crew captured. Any species wishing to discuss peaceful relations with humanity may contact us through diplomatic channels. Any species choosing to threaten human territory will receive the same treatment you have just witnessed. Amy Clark's voice came from the engineering section. Captain, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. It looks like several fleets are jumping into our area. Word about this battle is spreading fast. Morrison smiled as he looked at the stasis pod containing the alien survivors. Good. Let them come and see what happened here. It's time for the galaxy to learn that humanity is not some primitive species to be enslaved or destroyed. We're the new power in this region of space. The USS Liberty had accomplished something that would change galactic history forever. In just 240 seconds, they had proven that the old rules of space warfare no longer applied. Size and firepower meant nothing against superior technology and human ingenuity. As alien fleets converged on their position, Captain Morrison prepared to deliver humanity's message to the entire galaxy. The age of human dominance in space had begun with this single, decisive victory. Unknown to Captain Morrison and his crew, the battle between the USS Liberty and the Eternal Dominion had been watched by representatives from every major power in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had positioned monitoring stations throughout the sector, expecting to witness the quick destruction of the upstart human species and the return of order to their established hierarchy. President Elena Martinez of the Zephyrian Federation sat in her command chair aboard the flagship Stellar, Wind staring at her tactical display in complete disbelief. The Zephyrians were considered the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but what she had just witnessed was beyond anything in their scientific databases. Analysis report, she commanded her science advisor, Dr. Kelvin Ross. He was a tall alien with blue skin and large black eyes who had spent his entire life studying advanced physics and space technology. Madam President, the humans have demonstrated mastery of gravitational manipulation that should be impossible for any species, Dr. Ross replied, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. According to our models, this level of space-time control requires at least 1,000 years of technological development. But human civilization only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. President Martinez studied the debris field where the mighty Eternal Dominion had been completely destroyed. How did they advance so quickly? What did we miss about their development? The answer lay in humanity's unique approach to scientific research. While other galactic species had followed predictable paths of gradual technological improvement, humans had a special talent for making unexpected breakthroughs. Their mastery of gravity manipulation had not come from centuries of slow progress, but from a single brilliant discovery by Earth scientists who had asked a simple question: what if gravity was not just a force, but a way to program reality itself? Commander Yixtal of the Insectoid Collective watched the battle from his hive ship with compound eyes that could process information faster than any computer. His species had conquered dozens of star systems through superior numbers and tactical coordination, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for what they had just seen. Combat analysis, he clicked to his tactical officers in the clicking language of his people. Unknown technology, unknown physics, unknown strategic methods, came the reply from his subordinates. "These humans fight in ways that no species in our databases has ever used. Their weapons do not follow standard energy patterns. Their defenses work by changing the basic laws of physics around their ship." The implications were staggering for every alien civilization watching. If one small human ship could completely destroy the galaxy's most powerful dreadnought, what could an entire human fleet accomplish? Military leaders across the galaxy were already calling emergency meetings to discuss this new threat to their established order. High Chancellor Quodesh of the Galactic Council observed the battle from his massive space station orbiting the Council world. He was an ancient being who had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations, but he had never witnessed anything like the destruction of the Eternal Dominion. "Summon the military advisors immediately," he ordered his aide. "We need to reassess everything we know about space warfare and defense strategy. If the humans can do this to Admiral Vexcar's ship, then no vessel in the galaxy is safe from their technology." The comfortable assumptions that had governed galactic politics for centuries were crumbling in real time. The idea that bigger ships with more powerful weapons would always win battles had been proven completely wrong by the small human vessel. Military doctrines that had been used for generations would have to be completely rewritten. Senator Klextha of the Warrior. Clans watched from her battlecruiser with growing respect for the human tactics. Her people valued honor in combat above all else, and she had to admit that the humans had fought with impressive skill and intelligence. They had not simply overwhelmed their enemy with superior firepower, they had outthought and outmaneuvered a much larger opponent. "These humans fight like true warriors," she said to her bridge crew. "They use their minds as much as their weapons. Perhaps we have misjudged this species." But not all observers were impressed by humanity's demonstration. General Thokmar of the Militant Order saw only a threat that needed to be eliminated before it could grow stronger. His species believed that only the strongest deserved to survive, and these humans had just proven they were dangerously strong. "Prepare our fleet for immediate deployment," he commanded his officers. "We will test these humans ourselves and see if their victory was just luck or true superiority. The galaxy has room for only one supreme military power." Dr. Ford, on the EI. Liberty detected the multiple fleets moving toward their position. "Captain, I'm reading hyperspace signatures from at least 12 different alien civilizations. It looks like everyone wants to see what happened here." Captain Morrison nodded as he studied the approaching fleets on his tactical display. "How many ships total?" "Over 300 vessels, sir, representing every major power in this sector of the galaxy. Some are maintaining safe distances, but others are taking aggressive formations." Morrison realized that the real test of human power was just beginning. Destroying one alien dreadnought had been impressive, but now he faced multiple fleets that would want to test his ship's capabilities for themselves. Each alien species would need to see proof that humanity's victory was not just a lucky accident. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to receive visitors from across the galaxy. Some will come in peace, others will come looking for a fight. Remember that we represent all of humanity in this moment. Everything we do here will determine how our species is treated by galactic civilization." The crew of the USS Liberty prepared for what could be the most important first contact in human history. They had announced humanity's arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. Now they would have to prove that their victory over the Eternal Dominion was not a fluke, but the beginning of a new era in space warfare. As alien fleets converged on their position, Captain Morrison knew that the next few hours would determine whether humanity would be respected as equals or hunted as a dangerous threat to galactic stability. The first alien fleet to arrive belonged to the Zephyrian Federation. 12 sleek ships dropped out of hyperspace in a defensive formation, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the nearby star. President Elena Martinez had decided to approach the humans directly rather than wait for reports from other species. Captain Morrison watched the new arrivals on his main screen. Communications. Are they trying to contact us? Lisa Park checked her instruments. Yes, sir. Incoming transmission from the lead ship. They're using standard galactic communication protocols. On screen, Morrison ordered. President Martinez appeared. On the Liberty's display. She was a tall alien with blue skin, large dark eyes, and a graceful appearance that suggested high intelligence. Her expression was cautious, but not hostile, as she studied the human captain. I am President Elena Martinez of the Zephyrian Federation, she said in a musical voice. We observed your engagement with the Eternal Dominion. We request permission to approach your vessel for diplomatic discussion. Morrison considered her request carefully. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and scientists. If he was going to establish relations with alien species, they would be a good place to start. Permission granted, President Martinez. You may approach, but please, keep your weapons powered down. We've had enough fighting for one day. As the Zephyrian flagship moved closer, more alien fleets continued to arrive. The space around the Liberty was becoming crowded with ships from dozens of different civilizations. Some maintained respectful distances, while others moved into more aggressive positions. Dr. Ford monitored all the new arrivals from her science station. Captain, I'm reading significant weapons buildups from several fleets. The Militant Order, the Savage Coalition, and the Predator clans are all charging their weapon systems. Morrison nodded grimly. He had expected some species would want to test human military power for themselves. Maintain defensive fields, but do not power weapons unless directly threatened. I want to give diplomacy a chance before we have to fight. Again. The stasis pod containing Admiral Vexcar and his surviving bridge crew was brought aboard the Liberty under heavy guard. The alien admiral looked much smaller outside his command chair, but his yellow eyes still burned with hatred as human security officers escorted him to a holding cell. You may have won this battle, Vexcar snarled at Captain Morrison as they passed in the corridor. But the galaxy will not allow your species to upset the natural order. You will be crushed by forces you cannot imagine. Morrison stopped and looked directly at the defeated admiral. The natural order you're talking about was based on fear and brute force. Humanity offers something better. Cooperation between equals. But if other species choose to fight us instead of join us, they'll get the same treatment you did. President Martinez was granted permission to beam aboard the Liberty with a small diplomatic party. She walked through the human ship's corridors, with obvious fascination, studying the clean lines and efficient design that was so different from alien vessel architecture. Captain Morrison met her in the main conference room along with his senior officers. The room was simple but comfortable, with a large table and chairs designed for various alien anatomies. Earth had prepared for this moment by studying captured alien technology to understand their needs. President Martinez, welcome aboard the USS Liberty, Morrison said as he stood to greet her. I hope this can be the beginning of peaceful relations between our species. Your ship is remarkable, Captain Morrison, she replied as she took a seat. Our scientists observed your battle with great interest. The technology you demonstrated is far beyond anything we have seen before. May I ask how humanity achieved such advanced capabilities? Dr. Ford answered the question with a smile. We took a different approach to physics than most species seem to have chosen. Instead of building bigger and more powerful versions of the same basic technology, we asked whether we could change the fundamental rules of how energy and matter interact. Gravity manipulation, Martinez said with understanding. You've learned to treat space-time itself as a tool, rather than just an obstacle to overcome. Exactly, Morrison agreed. While other civilizations were building larger ships with stronger weapons, we were learning to rewrite the laws of physics around our vessels. Size and firepower become irrelevant when you can control gravity itself. Their diplomatic discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Lieutenant, Commander Brooks's voice came over the intercom with obvious tension. "Captain, we have a problem. 3 fleets have moved into attack formations and are demanding our immediate surrender. The militant order is claiming that we pose a threat to galactic security." Morrison excused himself and returned to the bridge with President Martinez following. Behind, on the main screen, they could see the aggressive alien fleets moving closer with weapons clearly charged for battle. "This is General Thokmar of the Militant Order," came a harsh voice over the communication system. "The human vessel will surrender immediately for processing and disposal. Your species has demonstrated dangerous capabilities that threaten the established order of this galaxy." Morrison sat in his command chair and activated the reply channel. "This is Captain Morrison. We have no intention of surrendering to anyone. If you want to discuss humanity's place in galactic civilization, we can do so through diplomatic channels. If you prefer to settle this through combat, you'll get the same result as Admiral Vexkar." General Thokmar's response was immediate and predictable. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human vessel before their technology can spread to other species." Over 50 alien warships opened fire simultaneously on the USS Liberty. The space around the human ship filled with energy beams, plasma bolts, antimatter torpedoes, and exotic weapons that could devastate entire fleets. It was enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, but once again, the human ship's gravity fields bent the attacks harmlessly away. The Liberty moved through the storm of weapons like a dancer, avoiding every shot while its defensive systems made the alien weapons curve away into empty space. President Martinez watched in amazement as the small human ship effortlessly avoided the combined firepower of 3 entire fleets. "How are you doing this? Even our most advanced shields could not deflect this much concentrated fire." Captain Morrison smiled as he watched his ship perform perfectly under extreme pressure. "We're not deflecting their weapons, President Martinez. We're changing the geometry of space around our ship so their weapons have no choice but to miss us." The battle was about to demonstrate to the entire galaxy that humanity's victory over the Eternal Dominion had not been luck. It was the result of technology so advanced that it made conventional space warfare completely obsolete. General Thokmar commanded his fleet from the bridge of his massive battleship called Iron Fist. He was a warrior from a species that looked like giant bears walking upright, with thick brown fur and powerful claws. His people had conquered 17 star systems through pure military might and had never lost a major battle. "Increase fire concentration," he roared at his weapons officers. "Focus all firepower on their engine section. No ship can dodge everything forever." But as he watched his tactical display, Thokmar realized that the human vessel was not just dodging their attacks. The weapons were actually bending around the ship as if space itself was twisted into knots. Energy beams that should have traveled in straight lines curved away like water flowing around a rock. Captain Morrison stood calmly on the Liberty's bridge as hundreds of alien weapons continued to miss his ship. President Martinez watched in fascination as the human crew worked with quiet efficiency, showing no signs of stress despite being outnumbered 50-1. "Dr. Ford, what's our power consumption?" Morrison asked his science officer. "We're operating at 15% of total capacity, Captain," she replied while checking her instruments. "The gravity field generators are handling this attack load easily. We could defend against 10 times this much firepower without strain." Morrison nodded and turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Commander Brooks, select targets among the most aggressive ships. Use minimum power settings. I want to disable them, not destroy them completely." Ryan Brooks studied his targeting display carefully. "I have clear shots on the Militant Order flagship and 2 of their heavy cruisers. Gravity Lance is ready to fire on your command." "Fire," Morrison ordered. 3 invisible gravity beams reached out from the USS Liberty toward the alien warships. The weapons created localized distortions in space-time that began tearing apart the enemy vessels at the molecular level. Within seconds, The mighty Iron Fist and its escort ships were drifting helplessly with their hulls cracked open and their weapon systems completely destroyed. General Thokmar found himself floating in his damaged command chair as emergency. Lights flickered around him. Half of his bridge crew was unconscious, and the other half was trying desperately to restore power to their crippled ship. "Damage report," he gasped through blood from a head wound. "Complete weapon failure, sir," reported his tactical officer. "Hull integrity is at 20% and falling. All primary systems are offline. We are dead in space." The general stared at his main screen, where the human ship continued to dance through the weapons fire from the remaining alien fleets. In less than 30 seconds, the humans had crippled 3 of his best warships without even slowing down. Their defensive maneuvers. Other fleet commanders watched the destruction of the militant order ships with growing concern. Admiral Krikstal of the Savage Coalition had brought 25 warships to this battle, confident that superior numbers would overwhelm any single enemy vessel. "All ships, emergency formation Delta," she commanded. "Surround the human ship and attack from all directions simultaneously. They cannot defend against attacks from every angle." The Savage Coalition fleet spread out in a sphere around the USS Liberty, positioning their ships so that any defensive maneuver would expose the human vessel to weapons fire from another direction. It was a classic tactic that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. But Captain Morrison had anticipated this strategy. "Helm, prepare for multi-directional gravity pulse. Engineering, increase power to field generators by 20%. Chief Engineer Amy Clark responded immediately from her station in the engine room. "Increasing power now, Captain. Gravity pulse generators are charged and ready." "Execute pulse," Morrison commanded. The USS Liberty released a burst of gravitational energy in all directions simultaneously. The pulse spread outward at the speed of light, creating a spherical wave of twisted space-time that reached every alien ship in the surrounding formation at the same moment. The effect was devastating. 25 warships of the Savage Coalition suddenly found their hulls being twisted and torn by gravity forces they could not resist. Weapon systems failed, engines shut down, and life support systems began to malfunction as the gravity pulse disrupted every piece of technology on their ships. Admiral Krikstal watched her fleet being systematically disabled by a single human vessel. Her own ship was shaking apart around her as gravity waves tore through the hull plating like it was made of paper instead of hardened battle steel. "Retreat!" she ordered desperately. "All ships that can still move, retreat to minimum. Safe distance. We cannot fight this technology." But it was too late for an organized retreat. Most of her ships were already drifting helplessly with their crews struggling to keep basic life support functioning. The human ship had disabled an entire fleet with one weapon discharge that had lasted less than 5 seconds. President Martinez turned to Captain Morrison with obvious awe. "In my entire lifetime, I have never seen such advanced military technology. Your ship just defeated 2 entire fleets without taking any damage at all." Morrison checked his tactical display where several more alien fleets were still approaching. Their position. "We're not finished yet, President Martinez. There are still hostile forces moving toward us, and I suspect they won't be convinced by what they've seen so far." Dr. Ford reported new contacts on her sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting 3 more fleets dropping out of hyperspace. The Predator clans, the Blood Legion, and the Death Cult are all moving to attack positions. Total enemy ships now number over 100. The space around the USS Liberty was becoming a graveyard of disabled alien warships. Pieces of destroyed vessels drifted past the human ship, while emergency beacons broadcast distress calls in dozens of different languages. But still more enemies continued to arrive, drawn by reports of the impossible battle taking place. Morrison realized that he was going to have to demonstrate human power on an even larger scale. Each alien civilization needed to see proof that their most advanced military technology was useless against human science. Only then would they accept humanity as an equal rather than a threat to be eliminated. All hands, prepare for extended combat operations, he announced over the ship's communication system. We're about to show the entire galaxy what happens when primitive thinking meets advanced technology. The USS Liberty prepared to face over 100 enemy warships in what would become the largest space battle in galactic history. The final phase of the battle began when Lord Commander Sektoth of the Death Cult arrived with his fleet of dark ships. His species worshipped destruction and considered death in battle to be the highest honor. They had never retreated from any fight, and their black warships were covered with the bones of their enemies. Today we feast on human souls, Sektoth declared over an open channel to all the fleets in the area. Death comes for all who dare to challenge the natural order of the galaxy. Captain Morrison watched the new arrivals with calm interest. The Death Cult ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything he had faced so far. Their hulls were covered with weapon ports, and their energy readings suggested they carried enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. Impressive ships, Morrison commented to Dr. Ford. What's your analysis of their technology? Ford studied her sensor readings carefully. They appear to use dark energy weapons and exotic matter shields, Captain. Very advanced for conventional technology, but still operating within normal physical laws. Our gravity manipulation should be effective against them. The combined alien fleets now included over 150 warships from 8 different civilizations. They represented the greatest concentration of military power ever assembled in this sector of the galaxy. Against this massive armada stood one small human ship with a crew of 200. High Chancellor Quodesh watched the gathering battle from his space station with growing concern. He had summoned the strongest military forces in the galaxy to deal with the human threat, but so far, every fleet that had engaged the USS Liberty had been defeated or disabled. Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact, suggested his aide nervously. These humans have demonstrated that they cannot be defeated through conventional warfare. No, Quodesh replied firmly. If we negotiate with them now, it will show weakness to every species in the galaxy. The humans must be stopped here before other civilizations decide to challenge our authority. Lord Commander Sektoth led the final assault personally. All fleets converging attack pattern Omega. Concentrate. Maximum firepower on the human vessel. We will overwhelm their defenses through pure destructive force. Over 150 alien warships opened fire simultaneously on the USS Liberty. The combined energy output was enough to boil away the atmosphere of a small planet. Space itself seemed to catch fire as thousands of weapons discharged at the same target, but the result was the same as before. The gravity fields around the Liberty bent every attack away harmlessly. Energy beams curved into impossible spirals. Missiles flew in circles before exploding uselessly, and exotic weapons simply vanished into folded space-time. Captain Morrison decided it was time to end this demonstration once and for all. All hands, prepare for maximum power discharge. We're going to show them the full capabilities of human technology. Amy Clark's voice came from engineering with obvious excitement. Captain, I can give you 90% of reactor output. That's enough power to generate a gravity field strong enough to affect entire fleets simultaneously. Do it, Morrison commanded. Dr. Ford, prepare the quantum singularity generator. Lieutenant Commander Brooks, target all hostile vessels for simultaneous strike. President Martinez watched in amazement as the human ship's power readings increased dramatically. What are you going to do, Captain Morrison? Something that will convince every species in the galaxy that fighting humanity is a very bad idea, he replied. The USS Liberty began generating a gravitational field of incredible intensity. Space around the ship started to visibly distort as the fabric of reality was twisted into new configurations. The alien fleets found their ships being pulled toward the human vessel by forces they could not resist or understand. All ships, emergency retreat, shouted Lord Commander Sektoth as his flagship was dragged toward the Liberty against the full power of its engines. We cannot escape their gravity field, but retreat was impossible. The Liberty had created an artificial gravity well that trapped every ship within a radius of several thousand kilometers. The alien vessels found themselves being drawn into a slowly shrinking sphere with the human ship at its center. Now comes the educational part, Morrison said calmly. Fire quantum singularity generator. The Liberty released a controlled burst of exotic matter that created dozens of tiny black holes throughout the alien fleet formation. Each black hole lasted only a few seconds before evaporating, but that was long enough to disable every enemy ship within the gravity field. The effect was spectacular and terrifying. Weapon systems throughout the alien fleet simply stopped functioning as the quantum singularities disrupted the basic forces that held matter together. Engine cores shut down safely to prevent overloads. Life support systems switched to emergency power but continued operating to keep the crews alive. Within minutes, over 150 warships from 8 different civilizations were floating helplessly in space. Not a single ship had been destroyed completely, but every vessel was completely disabled and defenseless. Captain Morrison activated a general broadcast to all the disabled ships. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy. Your fleets have been disabled, but your crews are unharmed. This was a demonstration of human military capability, not an attempt at genocide. He paused to let his words sink in before continuing. Humanity offers friendship and cooperation to all, peaceful species. We will share our advanced technology with civilizations that treat us as equals. But any species that chooses to treat humans as slaves or targets for conquest will face the full power of Earth's defensive capabilities. High Chancellor Quodesh stared at his tactical displays in complete shock. The greatest military armada in galactic history had been defeated by a single human ship without the loss of a single life. The implications were staggering for the future of galactic politics. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered his communications officer with a trembling voice. Morrison's image appeared on the Chancellor's main screen, looking calm and confident, despite having just faced impossible odds. High Chancellor, Quodesh, I assume you wish to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence between our species. Captain Morrison, the Chancellor began carefully, perhaps we were too hasty in our initial assessment of humanity's intentions. The Galactic Council would be honored to discuss full membership for your species. Morrison smiled slightly. I'm afraid the situation has changed, Chancellor. We're no longer applying for membership in your council. We're announcing the formation of a new galactic alliance based on equality and mutual respect rather than fear and domination. President Martinez stepped forward to stand beside the human captain. The Zephyrian Federation officially requests to join this new alliance, Captain Morrison. We believe your vision of cooperation is far superior to the old system. Over the next several hours, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations contacted the USS Liberty to request information about joining humanity's alliance. The demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority had convinced most species that cooperation was much preferable to conflict. Captain Morrison realized that his mission had succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. Humanity had not just gained respect from galactic civilization, they had fundamentally changed the balance of power throughout this entire region of space. The age of human dominance had truly begun, and it would be built on the foundation of superior technology, fair treatment of allies, and the absolute certainty that any species choosing aggression over cooperation would face consequences they could not hope to survive. As the USS Liberty began the journey back to Earth, Captain Morrison knew that humanity's future among the stars was now secure. The galaxy had learned that humans were not a species to be underestimated or threatened. They were the new leaders of galactic civilization, and they had earned that position through superior science, tactical brilliance, and the courage to stand up to overwhelming odds. The 242nd destruction of the Eternal Dominion had been just the beginning. Now, the real work of building a better galaxy could begin.